He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Well, the Alex Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow. We got a good one for you today. I had to do an important interview that will release on Monday, so that's why it's not a Hawaiian shirt Friday, but it should be a fun show. We got a lot of stuff. I've got a big speech for you on the back half of the show that I delivered to Pastor Alan Jackson's congregation last week on my friend Charlie Kirk and the media and where we all fit into this, and some Jimmy Kimmel stuff in there. It was a good speech. It was incredibly well received, one of my better received speeches, and I'm proud of it, and I want to share that with you. So it'll be on the second half of the show, but we're getting into the news, in particular the James Comey stuff, which you all know that is right up my alley. We will do that momentarily. But the first thing I want to do is I want to recommend all of you take out your phones right now and you download Freedom Chat. Freedom Chat is the new encrypted messaging app that I'm using, and you should be using this too. WhatsApp, Signal, these are owned by some of the worst people in business, and Freedom Chat is Tanner Haas, the CEO there, is a fantastic sponsor of the show. He's a great person, and it's a great product. And so this is an important thing to me. It's called Freedom Chat, the next generation messaging app designed for people who still believe that privacy and free speech matters. They've got their alpha version out now. It's available today, both Android and iPhone. So you should download it now. Unlike the so-called free apps that spy on you and sell your data, Freedom Chat was built with privacy first. Your messages are end-to-end encrypted. They're not stored on servers, and even screenshots are blocked. You have to try it. It's really fun. You try to take a screenshot, you can't do it. No tracking, no mining, no listening in, just private communications the way it should be. And there's something that I especially like, no ties to big tech. No ties to big tech, built with people, by people who I trust. And I'm creating my own content there. There's an Alex Marlow channel. It's on the front page. It's pretty cool. I saw a bunch of you have joined since they've come on as sponsors, which is great. And I'm starting to post some stuff there that's exclusive just to Freedom Chat people. I'm going to be posting more. It's really fun, especially, and I think that'll be where maybe we'll hang out during the show eventually, and so that you guys can give me real-time feedback when eventually the show becomes a live thing, which it will one day. So I'll share exclusive posts over there, exclusive content for you. But the main thing is when you're messaging and you want something private, you cannot trust the competitors. You just can't. They're owned by Silicon Valley. They're mining your data. They're selling your data, and you're making the bad guys rich. So freedomchat.com, where freedom still matters. James Comey, 2 counts, an indictment just before the statute of limitation on some 5-year accounts expired. So they got that in. Pam Bondi tweeting, "No one's above the law. Today's indictment reflects this Department of Justice commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American people. We will follow the facts in the case." And this seems like a good one to me. I'll tell you, I, of course, made a long list of recommendations on who should be investigated, who should be indicted in breaking the law. This has been the area that I've been focused on. And I want to talk big picture here. The only way to slow down lawfare is with this tactic. You have to hold the people that practiced it accountable. I played clips of the show yesterday. You'll have to listen to yesterday's show. I'm not going to do it again. And I read from a portion of Breaking the Law where we break down the specific acts that James Comey had done that were clearly lying in order to further the Russian collusion hoax, which was necessary to try to get Trump impeached, get him removed from office, and then harass him in his post-presidency. All of this stuff was designed to be punitive, to punish President Trump simply for not agreeing with his left-wing generic MSNBC politics. And that's what it is. And Comey is a Fed. He is someone who is part of the establishment. Donald Trump was a threat to him. And even though maybe one day he was a Republican or something, he's a garden variety leftist deep state guy. And this is who the left is forced to champion now. It's kind of unbelievable that this is what's happening online. This was playing out is you're seeing these people just rush to defend this Fed. And just when people are so skeptical of the federal government right now, and then now all of a sudden Trump has got it so that all of his opponents are defending Comey, who is not a particularly bright guy, has so much evidence of him just publicly under oath and on countless TV appearances, just even inciting violence, where he had the 86-47 thing, which of course was an incitement to violence. 86 means eliminate, where he had the shells in the beach. He's just not a bright guy, and he's not careful. And that's why I think they probably got him. I haven't gone through the details of the indictment. I don't know if they're out yet, but I'll tell you that he obviously lied under oath. I played those clips about the nature of the Russian collusion hoax, and he did it gleefully to get attention, to get on Stephen Colbert, to get on cable news, to sell books, to write novels, to get feted an online, not online, in DC social circles of which he's a part. He's a very thirsty boy. He likes a lot of attention. I had just an amazing show a couple of weeks ago where I played this rant where he was talking about Taylor Swift and how much Taylor Swift means to him. Obviously, all he's doing is trying to chase clout and chase attention. And people who do that make mistakes. He's not a careful actor. I don't think he's deeply principled. I don't think he is some sort of a core ideology that he's advancing. I do think he's a man of the left, but I think that he really just wants attention. And he wants certain types of people, the type of people with cable news shows and late night comedy shows, to give him positive attention. And I think that's why he did the things that he did. And they're possibly illegal, because I don't think he stopped when he got under oath and refused to. I think he would be dishonest. And I think we got him. So we'll see, but I'm looking forward to watching this play out. But big picture, this is what is necessary to defeat Lawfare. It's the only way to do it, because you have to show the people that if you engage in Lawfare, as Comey did, as I brought up yesterday, Comey specifically leaked information to a Columbia professor with the intention of getting it placed in New York Times, with the specific intention of getting a special counsel into Russiagate started against Donald Trump. That is about trying to win the 2024 election before they had to face the voters, trying to get Trump essentially eliminated because he had to campaign from a courthouse, would have maybe been in jail, maybe would have been branded with even worse than he was already branded with, so that he was toxic to the public. That was the goal. It was to rig an election. It was election interference. Not to mention, he was heavily involved in what I believe was the effort to nullify the 2016 election by framing him up as some sort of a Russian stooge with a bunch of blackmail from Russia. So that's how he is. That's who he is. And he creates so much content, and it's so sloppy. I have no doubt that there's a lot of good stuff in there. You know, I'm not joking about the Colbert stuff. This is James Comey on Stephen Colbert's show. Check this out.
You went in January of 2017 to tell President Trump about the Steele dossier. How did you tell him that there was and I want to put this delicately, pee-pee tape? How did you tell him about that rumor?
I spoke about.
So he's just having a great time. He's making jokes with Colbert. This is what he lives for. This is the dream for. He became just a generic left-wing talking head. And that's why I'm saying that I don't know if he's got some sort of a deep ideology. I think he wanted to be a popular guy. I think that's what he wanted more than anything, to get people like Colbert to kiss his butt for a little bit and have fun with them. And that's what he got. And I think he was willing to sell his soul to do it. I really
unverified that related to an allegation that he was with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow and that the Russians had videotaped it. I didn't go into the rest of it. I thought that was notice enough. And
So you didn't mention the salacious detail of the two prostitutes getting up on the bed that the Obamas had stayed in, because it was the presidential suite. Engaging in some water play. You didn't mention that at all.
I thought I'd served enough notice without going to that part.
Okay, and what did he say when you told about this?
He denied it. He interrupted me and denied it in pretty strong terms and asked, I assumed rhetorically, whether he looked like a guy who needed the services of hookers. Okay.
So they all think this is real, and that's the whole thing. Is they think it's real. We all knew it was fake from the start. Trump of course, never would have done that. And it was absurd to anyone who follows Donald Trump and gives him the benefit of the doubt ever. All right, so that's where he's at. But it's not just that he is someone who's thirsty for attention. He has talked openly about jailing Donald Trump. This is him on January 21st. So Joe Biden's been president for exactly 1 day, and this is January 1st, 2021. Check out this clip.
Convict him, bar him from future service, have the prosecutors, the local prosecutors in New York, pursue him for the fraudster that he was before he ever became president, lock him up for the garden variety frauds he did there, but don't give him that center stage, that dominant role in our national life, just down the street from where Joe Biden is trying to heal this nation.
Lock him up so Joe Biden can heal the nation. So he wants Trump in jail. How are we supposed to get these people to stop unless we're willing to hold them to the same standard? It's actually a more legit standard, because if they follow my recommendations in breaking the law, and I think they will, you don't go extra legal. You only use legal means. And because you lose the moral high ground if you do something that's illegal. Now, I walked through all 6 cases against President Trump, the 6 major cases in the interim of his 2 presidencies. Each one of them relied on those novel legal theories. Each one of them, each and every one, all 6 relied on something that was untested and unproven to try to lock up Trump or bankrupt him or get him disqualified from being president. And it's not just those cases. Remember, they tried to kick him off the ballot in Colorado and in Maine. All the J6 stuff, more on that later in the show. So they're always trying to come up with ways to use the legal system to get Trump, but they don't even have legitimate cause. They would invent stuff using the legal system. That's the nature of lawfare. So how are we going to get them to back off unless we use stuff that's legal? You can't lie under oath. So that's a clear violation of the law. So if we can prove that Comey, who clearly told a lot of falsehoods under oath, was breaking the law, that he knew he was telling the falsehoods, which is lying, that's illegal. And if he's obstructing justice, which is, it seems pretty clear he's obstructing justice. It's a loose term, but it seems like he's obstructing in a lot of different ways. But literally the day after Biden sworn in 2021, he is saying, get the justice system to lock up Donald Trump before he runs again. It has to be enforced with an iron fist so that the system will work. That is a phrase that will haunt James Comey. So there's already some blackmail going on from the left, and I want to share this. This is Senator Richard Blumenthal. Check this one out.
The old saying, what comes around goes around. Mm-hmm. You know, today it's a Republican president, but degrading the democracy and ruining, literally perverting the great ethos and tradition of the Department of Justice, where I was in awe when I walked through those halls as a federal prosecutor. I think it's time for Republican colleagues to say enough is enough, and we are going to push them and do it hard on the Senate floor, privately, in the judiciary.
But he's on MSNBC. He's only talking to left-wingers. And what you get from that clip is they're in complete denial of what their Department of Justice did. What Merrick Garland's DOJ with Vanita Gupta and with Lisa Monaco and Jack Smith, what they did is they used their legal apparatus to try to prosecute, jail, bankrupt Donald Trump and his supporters. They went after Roger Stone. They went after Rudy Giuliani. They put Bannon in jail. They put Peter Navarro in jail. Paul Manafort. They got John Eastman disbarred. The list is long. All the J6 prisoners are all over-prosecuted. All of them. They were already doing this. That's the whole premise of why I spent a year researching and writing a book called Breaking the Law, about they broke the legal system by doing this exact stuff. And they didn't have someone who clearly lied under oath. They never had anything that was such a layup like that. So them threatening us, oh, we're going to use this against you. You already do. You already did. And we're all prepared for it now. We all know that the left is going to use the legal apparatus to try to set political scores and settle political scores and to achieve political victory. They tried to stop Donald Trump from being president again by stopping him before he got to the ballot box using the legal system. So these threats are just empty. They're just not real threats. It's because we see it. We see it now. All right, I got to play some more MSNBC because it's too fun.
For a criminal prosecution.
Well, what's remarkable about that, Alicia, is that if this lying to Congress charge is what we think it is, it really has nothing to do with the Trump-Russia investigation other than the fact that Comey was testifying at a hearing that was about that. It was about a leak that Andrew McCabe orchestrated to the Wall Street Journal about an investigation of the Clinton Foundation. So the thing that MAGA acolytes really want, which is they want James Comey to be charged and jailed with framing Donald Trump over the Russia investigation, is not going to happen because there was a special counsel named John Durham who looked exhaustively at it. He was appointed by Donald Trump, and if he could have charged anybody, James Comey, John Brennan, or otherwise, he would have, and he only charged very low-level people, and 2 of his cases exploded in his face.
Well, first of all, we want to get Comey for anything. So Ken Delanian, who's this guy who's speaking, he doesn't speak for MAGA. He doesn't know MAGA. We want to get Comey for anything because Comey tried to stop President Trump from being president by engaging in election interference by pushing the bogus Russia hoax. That's what he did. And he was a part of the problem in that way. And so we would like to see him held accountable for that. But sometimes you get Al Capone for tax evasion. So we don't care what we get him for. Comey's a bad guy. He was a huge part of the Lawfare conspiracy. We know this. And so it'd be nice for there to be some sort of accountability for it. And so it'd be great if he was in jail. That'd be great. That's how we feel. And we don't really care how he got there. And the suggestion that Durham just clears everyone, I mean, I got to say, this one aged so well for me, and it kind of broke my heart because a lot of my people who I love on the right were so bullish on Durham. I always thought the Durham report was not going to get us what we wanted. And there's a new sheriff in town. His name is Donald Trump, and he has clearly put pressure on Bondi to get him some W's. And he's going to be looking at the people who he thinks he can get the low-hanging fruit. And Comey is probably the lowest-hanging fruit of guys that you can get. We probably get a conviction. So from all of what we've heard him say, this came up, the sort of same premise is what's he really getting him for anyway on Jake Tapper's show with Maggie Haberman. Let's see what's going on over on MSNBC. I'm sorry, on CNN.
And just to be clear here, President Trump wanting a prosecution of James Comey, does it matter what the charge is, or he just wants his political enemies charged with something?
Well, I think to prosecutors it matters. I mean, I don't think that the president is necessarily the closest observer of the criminal law, but I do think that for prosecutors, they realize there has to be a case that they can argue.
Yeah, sure. Fine. But yes, we do want to get him for anything. Yes, we do. Because we've seen the body of evidence is that James Comey is an election interference guy. He's someone who pushed the Russia collusion hoax, which nullified Trump's first presidency in a lot of ways. He called for Trump to be jailed. I just played the clip. So, of course, we want to go after him for anything. We don't need to be shy about this anymore. And we don't need to be afraid of, it's just retributive. It's not just retributive. Here's why. Because if we don't hold people like Comey accountable, if we don't get him when we can, we just let him this is like letting a criminal back on the street who's a violent criminal. He's just going to commit more crimes. He's just going to go do the same stuff. If we don't lock up some of these people who tried to subvert our democracy, as James Comey did, then they're all just going to run around, try to subvert it again. So we need to put some people on notice that if you guys don't chill out, some of you are going to wind up in jail. That's the whole point. So they have nothing to say. That's the problem. So they got to fill the time. But we got plenty to say over here on our side. All right. Let's see. I got an Eric Swalwell clip. This has got to be good.
And by the way, the president's saying he has no control here. He has all of the control here. He's the one who has been tweeting to the attorney general that Comey needs to be indicted. He's the one that fired the U.S. attorney who would not indict Comey. And so this is a very, very corrupt, corrosive act that the president is taking. And what I would just say to any prosecutor at the Department of Justice is it's not going away. As a member of the Judiciary Committee, I promise you, when Democrats are in the majority, we are going to look at all of this, and there will be accountability, and bar licenses will be at stake in your local jurisdiction if you are corruptly indicting people where you cannot prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
He just keeps threatening us. He says, we don't care. We don't care what Swalwell has to say because they're going to do it anyway. And this is the whole point that people don't get it. I think it was Barry Weiss, someone who I don't like very much, was pointing out that, the Democrats are going to be in power one day. They already went after all of us. I go through example after example, just people you've never heard of in your life who are getting stopped by feds when they're getting off planes at airports because they were present at J6 and didn't do anything else. These people weren't even aware of that because it wasn't covered on their preferred news networks. What was going on their preferred news network is stuff like this.
So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
Yeah, so it's obviously doable putting Trump in jail. That was Jen Psaki's show on MSNBC where Comey saying it's doable to get Trump in jail. That's where they're at, guys. This is fun. This is good. This is just. This is justice. We are restoring law and order. It's great news, and we got to keep it coming, and we will keep it coming. I got more examples of it, but I do want to tell you about something really powerful and exciting that's happening for us in the Salem family. Dinesh D'Souza's done it again. Eye-popping new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, illuminates a 3,000-year-old mystery about Israel, the dark resurrection, the end of days. I got to see a little taste of this at a PragerU event recently. It's going to be outstanding. The nation of Israel is a resurrected nation. But what if there was going to be a resurrection of another people, an enemy of Israel? After the horrific attack on October the 7th, The Dragon's Prophecy offers new understanding on Israel, radical Islam, anti-Semitism, and biblical prophecy. Could it be that the fate of the world, all of humanity, is tied to what we're seeing in the Middle East? Based on the #1 international best-selling author by Jonathan Cahn, The Dragon's Prophecy reveals how another realm could be transforming our world as we speak. Don't miss Dinesh D'Souza's new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy. It's in theater only 2 nights. Okay, so you got to mark this down on your calendar. October 6th and 8th. It's on streaming after that, but I want us to fill up the theaters October 6th and 8th. All tickets at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Dinesh is a great guy, worth your support, and you will get entertained and you will learn stuff as you always do. I was noting that we're continuing to do the investigations to try to claw back some of our law and order apparatus. Apparently, according to a report, the FBI secretly deployed 274 plainclothes agents to the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th. I mean, the conclusion that you would draw is so they were fomenting it, right? Like they were encouraging the rioting. That's what you would think. So we've got to drill into this because that's just where the mind goes. I'm not saying I know, but what are 274 people doing there? 274? That's a ton. Were they trying to tamp down the invasion of the Capitol? Were they trying to help? Were they just trying to snitch? Or were they actually trying to foment it? And that's the thing that we don't get about the FBI. And it's scary stuff. We've got to get stuff back on track. Department of Justice is directing prosecutors to ready probes of George Soros' foundation. Wow. That's great. We got to look into it. Look, maybe it's legit, but it's probably not. I mean, and remember, Soros, more than any other person, so I document breaking the law. New York Times bestselling book out now. As I document, there's no person in America more responsible for violent crime in our cities than George Soros. He's the guy who made it a political necessity for Democrats to be pro-crime. So if you had a victim of a carjacking or a robbery, or you were just deeply affected by watching something on the news, like, I don't know, let's say a refugee getting stabbed in a train, George Soros has got some accountability for all that. So we got to look into it. We got to put pressure on the bad guys if we want to restore this country. All right. Kimmel's back on the air. This is some bad news. He's, I guess, I'm trying to figure out, do I have a more interesting take on it? Maybe I don't. I don't know. But Sinclair is going to restore Kimmel. Apparently they made some sort of peace with ABC. Look, it's a win-win. Kimmel being back in the air is just going to be more stupid content for us. We can track his boring, unfunny show that gets no ratings. It's still fine. I don't know what they replace it with anyway. The late night comedy brand is going to die. So this is it. This is the last round. They're not going to start up new shows. No one's going to be able to get that sort of a following. So this is the end of an era. So maybe they just don't want to end it quite yet. But so Sinclair is putting Jimmy Kimmel Live back on. So we'll keep it. It's going to be more content. That's fine. But I will say J.D. Vance has called on Kimmel to apologize to Erica Kirk for lying about Charlie's killer and stop encouraging violence. That's good. Apologies are good. But even more important than that, I just want him to own up to he didn't own up to his big mistake. His big mistake, which I assume was intentional, but even if it wasn't intentional, the falsehood that he spread was that the killer was MAGA. And if you believe the killer's MAGA, that's going to foment more violence against MAGA people. And there's too much of it going on already. The left is targeting us. They're targeting Christians. They're targeting conservatives. And if we ever want to be able to speak freely, particularly on a campus again, we've got to knock this stuff off. And Kimmel never owned up to the main problem that he had. So apology, fine. That sounds good. But it's not the apology that I care about. I care about whether or not Kimmel is going to go out and say, the killer is not MAGA. The killer is a Antifa terrorist. That's what I want more than anything else. So that's the important thing here. One other one that I wanted to bring up the other day, I'm going to bring it up now because it's just so unbelievable. Apparently a Mets announcer, a guy named Gary Cohen, he criticized Cubs player Matt Shaw, who was a friend of Charlie Kirk, for going to Charlie Kirk's memorial. You guys got to hear this clip. Some of you may have heard it because it's a day or two old. I don't like to go back too far for the show, but I feel like this had to get a play in the Marlow Show. Check this out.
In a tizzy this weekend when he was not here for the Cubs game with the Reds. Game they lost 1-0, and in which his lack of presence was felt. It was later revealed that he had been given permission to attend Charlie Kirk's funeral. And I don't want to talk about any of the politics of it, but the thought of leaving your team in the middle of a race for any reason other than a family emergency really strikes me as weird.
It's unusual. I think it's unprecedented, at least from my experience as a player.
Unbelievable. It strikes me as weird. It's weird when your friend gets brutally murdered on video and you want to attend his memorial. Charlie was an avid Cubs fan and he and Shaw were friends. And it's just, we all love sports. This is the thing I want to caution people about. And we'll do more content on this down the road, probably in slower days. But it is, we've got to balance out some of the sports ball stuff. I think I like pro sports. Anyone who's excellent at anything is amazing. My biggest passion growing up was baseball. When I'm done with this, I'm going to turn the Ryder Cup and watch the golf. America off to a bad start as we're recording on that. But it's got to be a balance. I mean, that's the side dish of your life. The main course, the centerpiece of your life is faith, family, vocation. That's where things start. It is if your friend gets murdered and you want to mourn at his memorial and you have to miss a sports ball game, 1 out of 162, when you got a roster of 30, 40 guys, there's someone ready to step up and take your place. I understand if you want to do that. Now, that's a personal choice, but the stakes for, the Cubbies in their playoff push, which they're going to make the playoffs anyway, that matters more than uniting in Christian fellowship when your friend gets assassinated is just, it's just so diluted. Just to call it weird, it's weird to do that, not agree to disagree. And this guy, this Gary Cohen guy, he sounds like the content of what he's saying is idiotic, but he's got that announcer voice. So he gets away with saying stupid things because if you say stupid things with that announcer voice, everyone allows for it and will pay you money to do it. I'm so over that. It's such a bygone era, and I'm just glad that we're moving into this more authentic era. But Mets fans are apparently boycotting and asking for refunds. I don't know. This guy's another ant. It's just, the sports is great, but it's not the centerpiece of your life. Faith and family is the centerpiece of your life. And the next up is career. But if you find yourself spending too much time thinking about your parlays and your sports bets and too much TV watching the sports, it's got to be in moderation. It's a treat. Sports is great. It's great theater. It's great to see people excel at things. It's a nice diversion from things in your life that are not great. But let's not overdo it and start taking the sports so seriously that it starts being more important than your faith. And that's what this is about. This guy is completely godless, obviously, to not understand that and to think that the playoff push is more important than the life of Charlie Kirk. Just ridiculous concept. And it's weird. Dare I say it? It's weird. That was a weird comment. All right. We could do more, but I think that's good. So next up on the show this is my second speech. So I played my Israel speech yesterday. This is my media speech. This was a little more fun. It was very well received. I think you're going to enjoy this. And there's a lot of Charlie tributes in there. There's some Andrew discussion. There's some good jokes in there. My Trump impression seemed pretty on point here. So I think you're going to enjoy this one. But that's today's show. Thanks, Misty. Thanks, John Cassio, for helping me pull clips. And let's play the speech to Pastor Alan Jackson's ministry in Nashville. Good evening, church. My name's Alex Marlow, and I fight the establishment media for a living. And I want to talk to you about the spiritual war we're in and where the media's role in that is and the role you all play. But the first thing I want to note is what Jason said earlier about the importance of writing and the written word. This means a lot to me. I do think I was put on this earth to talk, speak into a microphone, and to edit a website and edit headlines. But the thing that I sometimes feel the most satisfied when I'm done doing is writing. And it's something you can do personally, and it's something that I luckily enough get to do in book form. I've written 3 books, and my first book was on the establishment media. It's called Breaking the News, and it's my takedown, my deep dive research into it. So this is my area of expertise. But I want to talk about the media starting with my personal narrative. First of all, I come from a state out west, and so I'm very happy to be here. I'll let you guess the state. Let me give you some attributes we're known for. Crime, illegal immigration, beaches, we got some beaches, and a lot of lizards. Can anyone guess? It was California, okay. So I grew up West Los Angeles, and I went to prep school in Beverly Hills. A lot of lefties there, a lot of Hollywood types. I started to learn why they were beating us with their terrible ideas. It was presentation. It was the way they were able to take their terrible concepts and to get them into the American bloodstream, into our culture. They were doing it through their messaging, the way they were able to message. And so then I went to UC Berkeley. I went to Berkeley for college, got all the way through. This is the home of the free speech movement, people. You guys know that. How Orwellian is that, by the way? And this is where I started to understand not just the degeneracy of the left that Jason was talking about, which is a very good call, by the way. Very degenerate area of the Bay Area. But the Orwellian nature that the people who claim to stand for one thing, watch them closely because they might be standing for the exact opposite. When I was hosting events on campus 20 years ago, they were shouting us down. They were smashing windows. They were trying to jack up security fees so we couldn't bring speakers to campus. They were trying to come up with every excuse so that we couldn't elevate the voices that audience needed to hear the most. That was my introduction to the left, and it was the most important thing I studied while I was there. Because I went to Berkeley and because I had this background, I got in touch with Larry Elder. I worked for him for a while, and I used that line on my resume to start with a man named Andrew Breitbart. How many of you are familiar with Andrew? Andrew wasn't a new media pioneer, he was the new media pioneer. And he built an empire, and I was lucky enough to be a part of it as the first employee. He understood viral media before we were even calling it that, and he was behaving as a happy warrior. The 2 most important attributes you could have, he made that his calling card. And I'll tell you, it was a wild ride. It has been, I'm still there, it's been wild. We were canceled before it was cool. The attacks were constant. Falsely called racist, falsely called anti-Semites, even though the website's owned by Jews, the whole concept for it, we came up for it in Israel. We were called fake news. You guys remember fake news? You know where that term came from? It was Hillary Clinton trying to cancel Breitbart. That's where it came from. Because our reporting, particularly with our colleague Peter Schweitzer, exposed that she was the one who was way too close with Russia. And that bothered her, because she, as Secretary of State, had okayed the sale of 20% of America's uranium reserves to Russia. She's the one who got Russian oligarchs loading up the Clinton Foundation with that Russian money. Bill Clinton was the man who got $500,000 for a 45-minute speech in Moscow. That's why she's calling us fake news. It's not because we're wrong, it's because we're effective. And in one sentence, Donald Trump took that word back when he pointed, I think it was Jim Acosta from CNN, and he said, "You are fake news." And just like that, it was ours. It was ours. It was our term. We love to do that. And so this is our legacy. This is our birthright in the media space. And we were boycotted simply for reporting the truth. The stories not just of today, but the stories of tomorrow. We were first to note that immigration, illegal immigration specifically, was destroying our country. We were first to identify the reality of Brexit in the UK. We were the first to note the threat of China and big tech, what that poses on this country. And perhaps the one we're best known for, we were the first to take a guy named Donald J. Trump seriously as a potential presidential candidate in 2015. So we were able to launch the careers of whoever is your favorite media personality. There's a good chance they came through my shop first. Steve Bannon, Ben Shapiro, and of course, the man of the hour, the man of the year, maybe the man of the century, my dear friend Charlie Kirk, who got his start writing for me when he was a teenager. It was a simple story, but it's a beautiful one. He was just starting to get his feet wet in conservative politics activism, and he came to us with a story, and he said, I've got a story here. My school has biased textbooks. And so my colleague Joel Pollack, who fielded the tip from Charlie, he said, well, why don't you write it up? That's the spirit of Andrew Breitbart. And Charlie said, I love Andrew Breitbart. I want to do what Andrew would do. And so he wrote up this story, and it was lightning in a bottle. Overnight, Charlie was everywhere. He was on Fox News, he was on radio, and he got the bug. I think Turning Point maybe was just getting started, he was just a colonel at the time. And he used that to propel himself into the public sphere. And he kept going, And a few years later, when Charlie was sending me stories all the time, he was writing frequently, I tried to hire him. And he had grown Turning Point just big enough where he said, you know what, I think we got something here. I think I'm gonna see it through. I think he made the right call. I think he did. But what Charlie wanted to do, and what he did, is he lived the way Andrew would have wanted us to live. And Andrew was taken from us far too young as well. You live boldly, you live loudly, and you leave nothing on the field. And even though the risks are massive, if you're righteous, you can be effective in the media space. And now, for the most part, the conservative movement shares the values that we've been pioneering: strong borders, anti-globalism, anti-elitism, anti-corporatism, anti-CCP. We're deeply skeptical of the tech oligarchy. We love rugged individualism. And best of all, in my opinion, is, of course, the fake news is the enemy of the people, okay? Believe me, okay? Whenever I say that, all the red lights go off. All the red lights. And I'll add one more to that, and that is so apropos this weekend, and I'm so grateful for the pastor for having me. It is that there is no America without God in it. So these are also popular viewpoints. They're not just populist, they're popular. And so when I set out to write my first book, it was breaking the news, and it was about the weaponization of the media against Donald Trump and his supporters and his movement. And it's not just that they're biased, it's that they're trying to destroy you. You probably saw the clip of me earlier saying they're hunting us. I'll come back to that. But they've always been trying to destroy us. They never were giving us a fair shot. We were the guinea pigs. We were the canaries in the coal mine. And our understanding of that let us know that we were in a culture war. And the only way to win a war is to fight back. They don't want to compromise with us. They want to convert us if they can. Thanks to folks like you, mostly they can't. Or they want to cancel you. That's their move. So the word weaponization is specific. They're targeting us. And these are corporations who want to control not just the media, but they're controlling our lives. And they have their own interests at heart. Now, I will say Bernie Sanders is right about one thing. There is an oligarchy that is increasingly running the country. But his version of it is made up. It's fairy dust. It's not real. I'll tell you, the real oligarchy is the conglomerates that are controlling ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN. That's the oligarchy. Those are the ones who've been silencing your voice, the Christian conservative voice. They're the ones who are not giving you guys a late night show or a news show, or there's no one who's enfranchising you in the establishment media space. And that space is partially controlled by our own government with the FCC. I'll come back to that in a moment. And it's only getting worse. The Silicon Valley tech titans are even worse than the establishment news media. Mark Zuckerberg, I like Zuckerberg 2.0. I like the medallion. I like the cool haircut. I do. It's effective. But he tried to buy the election for Joe Biden by donating $400 million to those drop boxes. You think we forget that? We're not going to forget that. Google is the most harsh, and it controls YouTube against conservative voices. How many of your favorite podcasters can't make money on Google? I'll tell you, you go try to look up a Breitbart story on Google, you're going to have a hard time. Unless you use the word Breitbart in it, then you're not going to find any of our stories, even exclusive stories that are 100% factually accurate. You can't find it in Google. And that's acceptable. That's an oligarchy. That's how an oligarchy functions. And their goal is to protect the establishment. We got AI coming up. That's going to provide some opportunity because we can push back on their lies faster using AI, but it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. So if garbage goes into the AI algorithms, then you're just going to get garbage stuff coming out. So what do we do about it? That's the big question for the summit, right? Well, first of all, what we did at Breitbart is we built a powerhouse of new media voices. And what Charlie did was something incredibly special. It wasn't just activism. Charlie wasn't just an activist. Charlie Kirk was a journalist. He was a modern day journalist. I wouldn't say it to his face though, because he'd probably get mad at me. He'd probably say that's the worst insult I've ever heard. How dare you call me a journalist? But he was interviewing the most important people in the world. It was, I compete with him for podcast bookings. And it was like, yeah, well, he just did an interview with Charlie. I'm like, I get it. I understand. That's a big show. I do that show too. And then he would go out and he'd spread the message on places like Instagram, places like TikTok, places where conservatives don't even go. And he would go and he would take over those platforms because he wanted to get the word out. He wanted to be the megaphone. So I want to talk about Charlie a bit for a moment. Because his murder has caused me to appraise the media moment that we're in. And I'll share a positive thought with you and a negative thought with you, and I'll do the negative one first. And this is what you saw in the clip that they played at the very beginning of this portion of the night. They all have blood on their hands. The establishment media does. All of them. Erica Kirk gave one of the most brilliant speeches I ever heard in my life a week ago tonight. My favorite line in it is this one. The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. Because that maniac would not have pulled the trigger if he had not have been radicalized. And he would not have pulled the trigger if he didn't know that he was going to get celebrated in certain corners of the internet, that he was going to get defended, that his satanic vision, him trying to play God, that was somehow going to be excused by these oligarchs, these corporations that control so much of our media and our speech in this country. And as you expected, the media disgraced themselves, didn't they? I knew this was going to happen, because when Andrew Breitbart died, they did the same thing. Here is something that Matt Iglesias, who is a mainstream writer, wrote about Andrew Breitbart when he died. The world outlook is slightly improved with Andrew Breitbart dead. It's a mainstream guy. That's as mainstream as it gets in terms of liberal news. It pains me to read these quotes. A guy named Matt Taibbi, who I think is one of us now. I think he's finally on the right. But he was writing for Rolling Stone at the time Andrew died, and he wrote a column titled, "This is Real." And forgive me, earmuffs if small children are around. The column was called "Death of a Douche." Andrew Breitbart has 4 small children, the grieving spouse. He was a friend to everyone. Liberals loved him who got to know him. And Rolling Stone magazine, and this journalist comes out and writes "Death of a Douche." That was the dialogue of the media. So do you think I was surprised when, after we saw that brutal murder in that train car in North Carolina, that Van Jones on CNN comes out and says, oh, well, it's just hurt people hurting people. You don't know the hurt that this man feels while he's gouging a woman's jugular out of her neck. He was the hurt one. He's the victim here. Were any of you surprised by that? You know it's demonic. You all do. You know that's what it is. There's no other explanation for it. They've been dehumanizing us for decades. When they call us fascists and they call us Nazis, someone is going to get shot. And that's exactly what happened. Happened to my friend. But this has been happening. The list of violence from left to right, from secular against religious in this country, the list is so long I could spend the rest of my time reading it. But in 2025, Turning Point USA students were assaulted at UC Davis. In 2024, I was with Charlie at UC Davis where they smashed into the basketball gym, breaking windows simply because he was speaking to a group of people at UC Davis. The 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. The assassination attempt on Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And we got news on that today. Did you guys see that, what the news is? The would-be Brett Kavanaugh assassin is transitioning. and is now insisting on using female pronouns. And you tell me Satan isn't here. You tell me. Convince me otherwise. The Summer of Rage, all those pro-life organizations that were vandalized in 2022, the Rand Paul attack, the Steve Scalise assassination, the Family Research Council terror. All of that happened and the media did nothing. They acted like it was normal. It's never been normal. So that's why when you see people like Matthew Dowd from MSNBC suggesting that Charlie Kirk had it coming, or maybe one of his supporters shot him, and the New York Times was quick to remind us that Charlie was a provocateur. Oh, did he provoke his own assassination? Is that the suggestion, New York Times? The Times also got busted saying Charlie made some sort of an anti-Semitic statement. Do you guys catch the correction? Charlie was quoting someone else to critique it. But they go live with the statement that Charlie, oh, we got him. He's made the anti-Semitic statement. ABC News' Matt Gutman said that the text messages between the assassin suspect and his trans furry boyfriend were touching and heartbreaking. CBS claimed that the motives were elusive days after we learned that the suspect had shot rounds with Trantifa symbolism etched into the bullets, or the casings. I know you got some gun people out there, I gotta be specific. I'm gonna get a lot of negative tweets just from that. Blue Sky had to issue a warning to chill out the people on that platform. You guys might not even be aware of this, but this is like a left-wing Twitter alternative, only for lefties. You don't have to issue a warning unless there's a lot of bad stuff going on the platform. People fomenting violence. So that brings me to where you knew I was gonna go. Jimmy Kimmel. You guys knew I was gonna get there. I'll read the quote, okay? I'm gonna read it, and then you guys tell me if this is a hard one. The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. He's saying he's MAGA. This is days after we learn he's a Trantifa freak. We're being told on ABC, which benefits from government spectrum. So I'm a radio guy, so I know the FCC, okay? You guys remember the Carlin bit? There's a bunch of words you can't say. I'm not allowed to say tits, okay? You can't say it on radio, okay? That's the worst I'll go. I won't do the others. It's family audience. But you can't say that unless you want a fine. And so Kimmel is out there inciting violence, obviously, trying to make this murder seem okay. And the FCC can't even rebuke him without the media acting as though it was Kimmel who was assassinated and not Charlie Kirk. Completely insane. So they dropped him, which is cool. Yeah. But I'll tell you, they didn't just drop him because of what he said. They dropped him because of his ratings. No one was watching that show. I looked at it before I came up to do the speech. His ratings had declined every year for the last 11 straight years without one exception. And they were down this year. He's now at 129,000 viewers in the key demographic, which is like 16 to 50-ish. That's where all the advertisers want to get their hooks in you. If we put up a video of a cat playing with a ball of yarn at that time, I can guarantee you they have to do this experiment. Sinclair, if you're out there, do this, put it up there. I bet you it gets more viewers than that. These are the people who celebrated the blacklisting of Tim Allen, of Roseanne, and, as Jason pointed out, Tucker Carlson. They celebrated when all this happened, all the while fomenting the clear, violent assassination culture in the dark corners of the internet. Never reporting on it, never investigating any of it. They needed to take Charlie Kirk's death seriously. This was an opportunity. And they didn't take it. So here's the good news part. This is where I'll close, the good news. It's twofold. First of all, the obvious one. The demons among us are revealing themselves. We're seeing exactly who they are. The internet is forever, and we're writing it down, we're screen capping it, we're documenting it, we're putting it in databases, so we will never forget who disgraced my friend. But the best news is more clear than ever, is that we don't care about these people anymore. We don't care about the establishment media. Their power is completely gone, and that is official. Charlie Kirk is a martyr, a Christian martyr, a martyr for Christ, and a martyr for America itself. And as part of his legacy, I'm not seeing anyone standing around helpless, whining, hopeless. I'm seeing people take action, legal action, non-violent action. People are turning to God and the Bible, church and community. CNN, NBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, NPR, they have no sway over us anymore. And I want for you, because you guys are dialed in if you're here on a Friday night, which I'm really enjoying, by the way, so thank you. I want you to pay attention to the people who tell us to slow down. Hey, hold up. We got to unify with the people who want us dead or something. Take a deep breath. One guy got in my X comments and told me to eat a sandwich last week when I was... It was kind of funny. It was kind of funny. They don't have our best interests at heart. Our loss of Charlie was terrible, but our response has been beautiful. Charlie died a warrior. That's a noble death in his prime. While they would have rioted, we're holding vigils. His legacy is going to be everlasting, and we're already seeing it play out. I spoke to Charlie every day in small bits, and once a week on his popular radio show and podcast. And I really don't want to speak for him. But I knew him well enough that I feel like I can say this one thing. What he would want for us right now is for us to fight and for us to win. Peacefully, yet fearlessly. Just as Jesus Christ did himself. Thank you.